Narcissist, Ensnared. Episode 21. I want the clock to move forward, so that 6:30 arrives, so you will be here. Kiss, kiss, kiss. Ian Wynne smiled as he looked at Ashleigh's text that she had sent a couple of hours earlier. He was excited, and had also been willing time to pass quickly. They were going to be able to spend a Saturday night together for the first time. Amelia was going to a birthday party and staying over, which meant there would be no issue or risk of her mentioning his staying to her father. Ashleigh had asked Wynne to come and stay, saying they would be able to have a glorious night together. She had instructed him to bring wine, snow, and to collect a takeaway from a nearby Indian restaurant. Wynne had set off just as it had begun to actually snow. The main route towards her village had been quiet, although he noticed the car had crashed, having skidded off the road and into the embankment. Throughout his journey, Ashleigh had sent him text after text, each one demonstrating her evident excitement at him coming to stay. When he had arrived at the restaurant, he had teased her by sending a message stating, "Stand back from the vodka bottle, kiss, kiss, kiss. I've only had one, kiss, kiss, kiss." Wynne suspected it was more than one drink. It was still snowing as he arrived in the village and parked as ever just up the road away from the house. He collected the wine carrier with 6 bottles in it, patted his jacket pocket to ensure the consignment that she had requested was to hand, and then picked up the takeaway. His boots scrunched on the snow, which was thicker in the village than in the city. He walked around to the house. The front door was ajar, and he entered. The house was silent. The village was always quiet, but there was a heavier silence now. No sound of a television, no music, not even the low hum of the dishwasher, which often seemed to be on. Wynne entered the kitchen area, and Ashleigh turned, glass in hand, her face breaking into her enchanting smile. He put down the items he was carrying, and she jumped at him, smothering him with kiss after kiss. Her hands tugged at his jacket, and it was soon removed as she bit his neck. She then started to unbutton his shirt as he grabbed her, and let his hands caress her. She pulled off her jumper, and unbuttoned her jeans as she stooped to remove his boots. Once he stood up again, she continued to kiss him, now stood just in her underwear, their clothes strewn across the tiled floor. Wynne unbuckled his belt. "In here?" he asked. "No, the main bedroom," she answered, with a glint in her green eyes. "I have some ghosts to put to rest tonight." Wynne removed his jeans and followed her up the stairs and into the main bedroom. She unclipped her bra and slid down her panties as he removed his own underwear. "Please have me now," she urged. He moved across the room to her and kissed her before lowering her to the bed. He began to let his hands move across her shoulders, then her breasts before gliding down over her stomach. "Get inside me, please. I have to feel you close to me," she demanded. Wynne nodded as she wriggled backwards across the bed. Wynne climbed on top of her and pushed against her. He felt her wetness and slid easily into her, making her gasp. Out of the corner of his eye, he could see the two of them in the large mirrored wardrobe doors. Wynne began to move inside of her, and her eyes rolled backwards into her head as she beat her fists on the bed, almost growling in pleasure. "So good, so good," she murmured, as he continued to make love to her, moving slowly and lowering his mouth to hers and then to her neck. He lifted his head and pushed deeper, and she responded, her face twisting in exertion and delight. He increased the speed, and she gripped his shoulders, writhing against him. She tilted her head and looked towards the wardrobe doors. Her eyes widened, and suddenly she cried out, "No, I can't, it's too much." Wynne halted his movement. "What's wrong?" he asked. "I can't, not in here. I can see him," she answered. Wynne frowned, and she shut her eyes, squeezing them tight. "Ashleigh, are you all right?" She opened her eyes again, and he could see panic in them. Concerned, Wynne withdrew, easing out of her as she rolled to one side and sat up. "Ashleigh?" Wynne asked, and placed a hand on her shoulder. She stood up and walked out of the room and ran down the stairs. Perplexed, Wynne followed her back into the kitchen. "What's going on?" he asked. Nothing. I just couldn't. It's okay, it'll pass. Let's open the food. Did you bring some gear?" "Yes, it's in my pocket," replied Wynne. "How much?" "Just a couple." "Just two?" she asked and raised an eyebrow. "Yes, just two." It'll do. Get it out, then." Wynne reached for his jacket as she started opening the food cartons. The two of them stood naked in the large kitchen, but neither minded. Other than Christopher, who was fast asleep upstairs, they had the house to themselves. Wynne produced the two tight packets of cocaine and opened one, dropping the contents onto a placemat as Ashleigh began to dole out the contents of the cartons, a delicious smell wafting through the kitchen. She produced 2 wine glasses and took a bottle from her large fridge, pouring 2 large glasses for them. "You might want to wait," commented Wynne as Ashleigh produced a note from her purse and began to roll it. "I'm not that hungry anyway," she answered. "Have you eaten much today?" he asked, concerned. "I have eaten. That isn't what I asked." "Ooh, la 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 la. Come on, rack up those lines," she responded. Wynne did so, and seconds later Ashleigh had snorted a large line and stood staring at Wynne. "This is going to be a fucking good night," she said. By 10 p.m, Wynne and Ashleigh were in the bedroom. Their aborted lovemaking had been resumed earlier. Ashleigh sat naked on the bed and drank from her glass, an empty wine bottle to one side. "I'm worried about tomorrow," she said. "Why?" "Emilia's got a swimming tournament. He will come and take the children away from me. I know it. He will turn up." "No, he won't. Why would he?" asked Wynne. "I know it. He will. He's going to turn up at the swimming pool and take the children away. There'll be nothing I can do. You have to protect me, Ian." "Ashleigh, has he said that he's going to do this?" She stared at him as if she was looking at someone else and not him. "Ashleigh." Please, he's going to come. I'm terrified of what he might do." "He isn't. I don't understand. Why would he?" "To punish me." "Nonsense. He'll be too busy doing his own thing." "I need protecting from him." Wynne looked at Ashleigh. She had a strange look on her face. It was as if she was somewhere else. "Do you want me to come to the swimming pool with you, then?" suggested Wynne. "Yes." "Fine, I'll do that and there won't be a problem. He won't turn up, believe me." She suddenly sprang forward and hugged Wynne, repeatedly thanked him. Ashleigh then let go and stood up and left the bedroom. Wynne watched her go, and then reached for his own glass of wine from a bedside cabinet to his left. He wondered what on earth had got into her. She seemed to have overcome her concerns quickly enough about making love to him in the bedroom. He ate his food earlier, but she had barely touched hers, preferring to ingest the cocaine and drink the wine before she took him back upstairs, and they continued where they had left off. Twice. About 5 minutes had passed, and Wynne wondered where she had got to. She had not used the toilet, as there was an ensuite besides the bedroom. He got off the bed and walked onto the landing. "Ashleigh?" He noticed that the main light in the spare room had been switched on. Wynne walked to the room and found Ashleigh stood next to the end of the bed, looking at the floor and clicking her fingers. "Ashleigh, what are you doing in here?" he asked. She turned around and mumbled something, but Wynne was unable to tell what she had said. She continued to stand there, naked and clicking her fingers. She muttered something again and then walked past Wynne, making her way down the stairs. Wynne noticed that a glass of water had been placed next to the spare bed. He frowned and followed Ashleigh downstairs. When Wynne walked into the kitchen, he found her curled up in a ball on the floor, mumbling to herself. "Ashleigh, what's going on?" asked Wynne as he knelt down. She was shaking and talking to herself. "Ashleigh, "What is going on?" asked Wynne, as he knelt down. "Come on, get off the floor," he said, and pulled at her arm. She allowed herself to be lifted up, and she then walked around the island and the kitchen, and stood nearest the door to the pantry. "Ashleigh, are you okay?" The mums," she said. "What about the mums?" "The mums at the school, they keep inviting me, but... Wynne walked around to where she was stood and looked directly at her. "The mums at the school, they keep inviting you, and?" encouraged Wynne. "I just don't know." "Know what?" "They film me." "Who films you? The mums at the school?" "They invite me, but I can't," she continued. "Ashleigh, I'm sorry, but I don't know what you're talking about. You're not making any sense to me." It just is. Sometimes I think," she gabbled. "Sometimes think what?" asked Wynne, starting to lose patience. "I wanted to, but then you see, I often anyway." "You aren't making any sense." "They are filming us." "Who?" "The men outside." "There's nobody outside." "There is." "Where?" "Across the road." "How can someone be possibly filming us from across the road? They can't even see into the house from there." "Upstairs." "What about upstairs?" asked Wynne, feeling exasperated. "They film us making love." "Who the fuck films us?" "He does," she answered. "Who is he?" "Peter." She nodded. And just how is he doing that then?" asked Wynne. "From the wardrobe." "From the wardrobe? Jesus, Ashleigh, what the fuck are you going on about?" "They do it. They do it to me, always, since I was a child." She suddenly dropped to the floor and curled up in a ball again and lay babbling to herself. Wynne stood watching, utterly perplexed as to what on earth was going on. He pulled at her arm and dragged her back upstairs into the bedroom. Feeling his annoyance rising, he pulled back the wardrobe doors. "Look," he said, "nothing but your clothes, nothing but your shoes, no cameras, no hidden cameraman." He pushed the clothes angrily apart, demonstrating that there was nobody in the wardrobe. Ashleigh just stood and stared. "See?" demanded Wynne. Ashleigh moved over to the large dresser and picked up the rolled note. "Oh, no, I don't think so," said Wynne, and he scooped up the placemat. "Why?" "That's not going to help you. Give me the note." She handed it over and walked past him. Wynne set down the placemat and followed her back into the spare room. She had switched the large overhead light on again and was stood in the same place, and again was clicking her fingers. "Ashleigh, what the fuck is wrong with you?" She didn't respond. "Come back to the bedroom. Come on." Wynne led her back in and laid her on the bed. He held her. Occasionally she would twitch and kick her legs before she then got up again. Back to the spare room she would go, switching the light on, and then stand in the same place clicking her fingers. Wynne led her back to the bedroom, again lowered her to the bed, and tried to keep her still. Up and down she went, sometimes to the spare room, sometimes to the kitchen, where each time she would drop to the floor and curl up in a ball. Wynne would then lead her back to the bedroom. He wondered if she was actually sleepwalking, but dispelled this straight away. She was wide awake. Occasionally she would reach for the wine or the cocaine, but he kept both away from her. He tried talking to her, but all he received in reply was either garbled words which were indistinguishable, or actual words which didn't form any proper sentences. She was not distressed, but seemed unable to speak in a coherent sentence, or stay still for long, each time repeatedly gravitating back to the spare room or the kitchen. Ashleigh began kissing him all of a sudden and reached for him, stroking him. She pulled him onto her, and he was inside her as they made love. She was looking up at Wynne, her face a strange mask. Ripples of pleasure passed across it, but they seemed as if they were a product of thought, rather than of her actually feeling them. "You are good, so good," she said softly. "Who's the best?" asked Wynne, as he moved back and forth. "You are." "Who am I?" "Peter." Wynne stopped his movement. She had looked straight at him as she had said her husband's name. She had not reacted to Wynne's cessation of movement, although he was still inside her. "Who am I?" he asked again, actually more concerned than angry. Peter? Wynne rolled off her, and she got up and walked out of the room. Wynne shook his head and made after her, finding her once again in the spare room, and babbling to herself. "Ashleigh, if this is some sort of game, this isn't fucking funny," said Wynne from the doorway. She didn't answer. He walked up to her and grabbed her by the shoulders. "I said, this isn't funny," he repeated. She looked through him and then back at the floor. The clicking of the fingers started again. Wynne let out a groan and steered her back to the bedroom. Wynne looked at the bedroom clock. It was a little after 2 a.m. This pattern of behaviour had been going on for nearly 3 hours. Nothing had changed. He felt it couldn't now be the influence of the drugs or alcohol, given the passage of time, as he had kept her away from those things. She seemed to be suffering some kind of meltdown, and had descended into acting like an automaton. Although she looked at him, there was no recognition. Back and forth they went, from bedroom to spare bedroom, and back or down to the kitchen. Nothing she said made sense. He kept holding her, hoping that whatever this was would pass. He wondered if she'd gone into some kind of shock, triggered by her fear of Peter turning up tomorrow. Whatever it was, Wynne had never come across it before, with anybody. Wynne felt something gentle touch him, and he turned. It was light, and he felt exhausted. Ashleigh was crouched beside him. She was dressed. He did not recall whether she had finally fallen asleep, or whether he had. He looked over at the dresser and saw that the pile of cocaine remained untouched. "Are you okay?" she asked. This time her eyes focused on him rather than through him. "I'm exhausted." She nodded. "I need to go and pick Amelia up and take her to the competition." "We really need to talk," said Wynne firmly. Ashleigh nodded again. "Will you be okay to look after Christopher when he wakes?" "Yes, but don't be long, please. I promised to take my nephews to their football matches." "I won't be." Wynne sat up as Ashleigh exited the bedroom. Moments later, he heard the front door close, and then her engine starting. He rubbed at his eyes, trying to dispel the fatigue. He could only have slept for a few hours. He remembered still being awake at 4:30 a.m., again returning Ashleigh to the bedroom, but that was the very last thing that he had recalled. What on earth had happened to her last night?